Hello, everybody. Just a quiet lunchtime, isn't it? Deadline day. Welcome to Deep in NewsQuest Towers. This is what you may be able to recognise. This is the Deadline Day.
Such is the top secret nature of what we're about to impart.
Exactly.
We need to be in a secure, confined space.
Exactly that. It's been a frantic hour or so for Norwich City and Deadline Day. We're going to talk you through it. I think there might be some interesting stuff that kick off whilst we're on this broadcast as well. So we'll keep you posted on all of that. We want you to get your comments, your questions in as well whilst we're live. We are, of course, expecting Norwich City to be pretty active today, actually, in terms of the way it's panned out, which links us to this point. Of course, the key lines, Ben Anis Slimane, he is very, very close to a Norwich City transfer.
Maybe even during this broadcast, but we won't say any more.
There we go.
Hypothesise.
Well, potentially, you never know how these things work out. Aboh Kamara, of course, and Hull City reported in about the last 10 minutes or so. Agreement reached in principle between the two parties. Aboh Kamara on his way to London for a medical, as things stand, but that deal conditional on Norwich City getting in a permanent replacement, which is now where all paths lead, really, for Norwich City, trying to get in that permanent all-loan replacement for Aboh Kamara before 11 o'clock tonight. That's a good comment. I think you're on the wrong one there. You want to go up one. There we go. Which is, are you in Torup's basement? We can't see Josh Sargent in here at the moment, which is unfortunate. Let's try and dissect it because there's loads of other plates and wheels spinning. Go on, Paddy.
What was I? No.
Oh, you meant to click on Freddie's comment. We'll come back to you, Freddie. We'll come back to you. Plenty of other wheels spinning as well in terms of development, inward and outwards. We've had the news about Chelsea's Billy G. Who's the other lad? The lad from Dundee, Brandon Forbes.
Don't say Duncan.
I nearly said
Brandon
Duncan,
Forbes.
actually. Brandon Forbes, he's anywhere near as good as Duncan Forbes, and Norwich City have got a good one in their hands. So, yeah, plenty going on, plenty to dissect. We're doing that on fairly empty stomachs, so apologies for any confusion or errors that may pop up during this broadcast.
Well, simultaneously, this isn't us being rude, but we've got about 15 devices on the go.
I've got two phones to my left.
We're trying to man the live blog.
Paddy's got a laptop and a phone to his right, just to give you an indication of the setting that we're in at the moment. And anything could go off during this broadcast, so that's the beauty of it. Do keep us updated if anything breaks anywhere that we need to react to as well. Such is the joy of this. It is a manic day. It's and maybe that's the place to start, Paddy, because to report on these days, to be involved in these days is frenetic. It's manic, particularly when you get a busy one. We've had a fair share of quiet ones. I'm still trying to get over the last year's episode, which saw a 2:30 a.m. end time to that, with obviously Norwich confirming Hwang Yu-jo and Danny Bart. So they're frenetic and frantic days, aren't they? And I suspect we're probably in for a long one again tonight.
Well, yeah, I mean, the way this is shaping up, I think for me the lateness will be the incoming, subject to them getting that done, because they're not starting from cold, as we know, the way Norwich plan for scenarios. I mean, this morning they were talking in terms of, they would need to do one if Kamara goes, and ideally a permanent, and a permanent as opposed to a loan. Clearly, there's more in terms of the medical aspect of that comes into play. So, you're not going to need a sufficient block of time to get a permanent over the line. And I'm looking at it now, and it clearly feels that Kamara element of this equation is there. So that gives them, where are we now? 1 o'clock. They've got 10 hours now to try and do that permanent. But I do fear we might be in deal. Do they still do deal sheet territory?
They do. So from my memory of last year, it's slightly different to the Premier League, which I think you get 2 hours to do, don't you, in the Premier League to do a deal sheet. I think in the EFL, from memory, it was 15 minutes with Danny Bart last year, and that was very much I think that Norwich got that done with about 30 seconds to spare from memory. So whether that's changed or not, I don't know. I can't say I'm completely up to date with deal sheets, but that's how it worked last year. So if it's similar, then we probably, hopefully, won't have too long. But of course, you then had the gap, I think, between Norwich getting the deal done and ratification, all those various elements. They had been done in time, and then obviously subsequently announced at 2:30 in the morning, which I'm still furious about. But it's not anyone's fault. Paddy, it's been a frantic hour or so. I think that's fair to say. Let's start with Aboh Kamara, because that's the most live one with probably the most implications for Norwich in both directions. As we've reported, as we've stated, agreement in principle between the two clubs. We think for a deal that could rise above £5 million with add-ons and all of those various elements. first and foremost in terms of that, and obviously it's not done yet because there's this other part to it, which is about Norwich getting a replacement. But if we look at this as a standalone deal, Norwich have stood firm. They've dug their heels in, as they have done throughout the summer with other outgoings. If that ends up to be the fee that they receive for Aboh Kamara, it's pretty sensational money.
Certainly is. And again, multiple, mainly from Hull, approaches over this period, accelerating in the last sort of 24, 48 hours. And it's only in a matter of the last hour or two that they've got to the level where, because every previous approach has been, nope, that's not where we're at. We have a value on this player, as they did with Adamida, as they did with, John Rowe, as they did with Gabby Zara. As a result, that is underlined yet again that players will leave, but they'll leave on Norwich's terms. Contractually, there's no urgency in terms of, even with the fact he's 12 months out, he's still got another potential year on top of. So it wasn't that going to change Norwich's mind. It was essentially, a club, in this case, all hitting the numbers that they need to hit. And as a result, that feels like it's done. But by no manner of means will Aboh Kamara be departing for Hull, because he won't be going anywhere if Norwich can't get the inward sorted out. Because why would Norwich allow themselves a situation where they're down a player moving forward, even if it was a player who clearly didn't want to be here, doesn't want to be here. But purely on that element, there's no doubt if it ticks up, and as we memorably had with Gabby Zara this summer, there's always a lot of discourse around the fees and what Norwich have actually got, as opposed to what they could get with all the add-ons and the attendant clauses. What's a guaranteed bonus? What isn't? It became a whole cottage industry around Gabby Zara.
Did it? I missed that.
But as with him, the reality is Norwich will be getting a value on a player who, let's be honest, I looked at it last night, he's made 6 senior appearances for Norwich. He's got 1 goal. Yes, he had a very eye-catching spell at Portsmouth, but that was in League One. That, for me, any deal that could scale up as much as 5 to 6 million, potentially, I think is excellent business, with obviously a sell-on clause if he goes to Hull and really kicks on in his career, as you hope he does, because there's a talented boy there, but it's just not going to be at Norwich, unfortunately, with that big asterisk that it will only happen over the hours that remain in this window if Norwich can get their business done, as you would expect, because it makes no sense to let him out, even an unhappy player, let him out the building if they can't do what they need inward.
No, agreed. And the situation with that is he has been granted permission to travel to London, which I'm led to believe is where Hull do a lot of their medicals. So he's gone there to fulfil those elements, whilst obviously Norwich City's work stepped up. If it hadn't already, obviously the two things work simultaneously. It doesn't work as if now this has been done, Norwich go, right, let's try and find a replacement. That will have been simultaneous, that process. It's now about stepping it up and probably putting a few more of those plans into motion. I think as Torrett mapped out to you yesterday, they've looked at different areas of the pitch and different positions where they feel maybe where they maybe weren't expecting, but could foresee a player going. And obviously with John Rowe in that position, I'm sure they have had plenty of targets. We know, as we reported earlier in the week, they had a loan approach rejected for Rabbi Matondo at Rangers. Nice haircut. I think we both got haircuts, coincidentally.
This colour is completely, it's nothing to do with my allegiance with this weekend either. It's just what was in the wardrobe that I pulled out in between trying to keep a 4-year-old on the straight and narrow this morning.
Indeed. With the permanent search, Paddy, and we do believe at this stage it is permanent. I'm sure there are other loan plates spinning in case the loan option, the permanent option doesn't come off.
Yeah.
Where do you feel that will lead Norwich City off the top of your head? And I know people will be desperate for names, we don't have them to hand at the moment, and these things pop up at different stages. But do you feel at this stage that, purely based on feeling, perhaps rather than knowledge, but that it's probably more likely to be an overseas option?
Yeah, I think I do, because I just sort of zoom out a touch and look at the business they've done this summer, and okay, you could say Creseni and Doyle, but Cordoba, that was an astute piece of business in terms of value that they've got for a player who they feel is Championship and above level. Forson, another one, subject to it getting done. Slimane maybe is in that category as well. So, albeit you could argue he has spent the last 12 months in England at Sheffield United, but again, a player overseas, Oscar Schwartau, another one. So yeah, it does sense. The sense is that a lot of their recruitment focus has been continental Europe, and with that in mind, and I just think the value that if they want to do a permanent, we know that there was a feeling they needed to generate in the region of about 25 million this summer in terms of revenue from player sales. And you can all do the back of the packet maths, but I don't think that leaves them, even though they've banked the sums they have banked for Sarah and for not Rowe, because obviously that's a loan with a view too, but certainly Ida and potentially Kamara now, that it probably doesn't leave them huge sums. I certainly don't think we're looking at 5+ million, because that would fly in the face of what they were trying to do, which is a twin track of generate that a volume of revenue from player trading as well as improving the squad. So if you're dealing in a market which is, we'll say, 2.5 to 5 mil, where you get, I mean, we've seen some ridiculous already this morning. The Birmingham bid for Jay Stansfield, a League One club wanted to go to 9 or 10 million.
They need to have a lay down and just.
But that underlines, in terms of domestically, where is their value now, particularly for Norwich wanting to go and do an attacking player. They tend to come with higher price tags anyway, by definition. So it does feel that it is probably going to be an overseas one they look at if it's the permanent route. It might not turn out to be that.
Yeah.
Fates might conspire against them and they might have to do a loan. We've seen the loan players that have been linked with, Matonda, obviously Jaden Anthony. We know they were in for Raksaki as well. So, yeah, if you're asking me on the permanent element of what they're trying to do, I'd say probably overseas. If that doesn't come off, then it's not going to be a surprise, is it? If it's a Premier League loan, I would imagine, between now and 11.
No, agreed. We've just tweeted this out actually, but you mentioned Gabriel Sarah. Slightly different deadline day delivery for him, but his wife and him have welcomed. I don't know if we've specified actually. I must have missed that. Baby girl into the world. So congratulations to him. And quite the summer for that man. Yeah. All told,
I think she was going to be born in Norfolk.
She was going to be born in Norfolk. Yeah. So
Lioness, future Lioness,
who knows, future Norwich City women player. Yeah, let's hope so. That would be good. Congratulations to him. So that is where we sit in terms of the Kamara permanent one. We're probably expecting this to go quite late, aren't we, Paddy? I think from what we've mapped out. So for a change, yeah. So worth keeping that in check and keeping an eye on that. Obviously, at 1 o'clock, Norwich City confirmed that Dan Barden had joined Swindon, League Two Swindon, on a season-long loan. We'd expect him to initially go there as backup, and who knows, hopefully try and provide some competition and maybe even get himself back into the team. But Paddy, this is another fascinating strand to deadline day, because yes, there is this sort of Kamara winger situation, Slimane as well, which I think we'll come on to pretty shortly. But there's also a lot of trading in inwards and outwards in terms of at development level. We've seen Barden. We're expecting Aboh to join Stevenage on loan later today. And also some incomings as well. We mentioned Brandon Forbes, but Billy G now seemingly to join him as well. Now, this looks a really interesting one. England under-19 international, 19 years of age, was Chelsea's under-21 captain, was on the bench by all accounts for the Carabao Cup final defeat to Liverpool in February. Norwich looked to be pretty close to signing him on what we understand is a free transfer with some add-ons and a sell-on to Chelsea.
Exactly, and immediately your eyes drawn to the no fee, because as you map out there, this is a guy who was on the bench for Chelsea in the League Cup a matter of months ago. So, but I mean, we've discussed it amongst ourselves, haven't we? You look at how bloated Chelsea's squad is. There a PSR dimension there, just to get these players off books. There's no real pathway maybe but you see the amount of players they bring in, Chelsea. If you're a young player, you're looking at it, am I going to get a chance a lot quicker at a club like Norwich? The answer is yes, clearly. So, but given his pedigree, I mean, to not have to shell out up front, which is our understanding, that represents a very astute piece of business from Napa and the recruitment types, as opposed to obviously the boy Forbes. That's looking like a deal, certainly starting around about 300k, could rise to 5 plus a sell-on fee. So, for me, if I was looking at those two deals and I didn't know the values, you would have thought clearly a Chelsea youngster is
good all the way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and we think there might be another one maybe in that strand between now and deadline, just bolstering the academy. And again, it chimes with the longer-term strategy of what this club are trying to do now under Napa and Torop, where it's you develop them from inside your academy, or you try and cherry pick when they're a little bit older, bring them back in to maybe the top end of your academy development level, and then you create that pathway, which we know is essential. And we've just discussed it in a previous segment. You need to be able to bring players in who are good enough for your first team, but also that when they produce in your first team, that they've got that resale value. And that's exciting to be going to Chelsea and being able to convince a Chelsea player who was their captain of their 23s by accounts as well. So.
since Alfie Gilchrist, who was played for Sheffield United last week. Since he stepped up to the first team, he has been the captain.
Absolutely, and to my mind, it's not. We're only going back to last summer where what was happening. Alex Matos doesn't think Norwich is the right fit for him. Sees an opportunity to get to Chelsea, and we know there's a lot of change around in terms of inside the club at Norwich, but that they can now reverse that trend in the space of 12 months. It's good signs, because if you're convincing young talent who are part of Chelsea's academy that Norwich is probably first team wise a better pathway, then it won't be the last one we see, I don't think.
No, agreed. And it's going to be a really interesting one. He has played, I think he was formerly a defensive midfielder, but in the last year has played pretty exclusively as just a centre-back. Sounds like Norwich have monitored him for a while, and obviously timed their run in terms of being able to sign him. So, yeah, that's going to be an excellent addition if they can get it over the line, certainly on paper, for the development squad. You've mentioned Brandon Forbes from Dundee United. Jonathan Tompkinson, Paddy, speak to me about him, because it feels increasingly like he is going to be one to watch in the final hours, because it sounds like he has a decision for himself to take. It sounds like he has a few options on the table.
Yeah, by all accounts, there's at least two clubs, and that doesn't surprise me, because once he got in at Bradford last season, he had to bide his time a little bit. But the reports back were that he was in a defensive three. He was actually holding his own, and Bradford, historically anyway, in recent years, are a very big club in the lower levels of the Football League. So it doesn't surprise me that there's interest. Clearly, I mean, you look at the sort of timeline from halfway through pre-season here onwards, he's been nowhere near it. So I think that's pretty telling in terms of where Torrop sees him with maybe a Warner and a Hills. I mean, we've got to just cut across because it obviously is relevant. Where does this leave Brad Hills? I think my sense would be if Tompkinson's going, I think they would like Warner to go out and get some football. But as of when I checked this morning, there isn't really any firm interest in him. So, that would tell you that probably Brad Hills, they've decided that maybe he's going to stay in and around the first team squad here, which I think is good for him, to be kept here for the next 6 months, and then you can look at it again in January. But going back to Tompkinson, I think it's safe to say he isn't one that Torrop is feeling is going to be part of his plans moving forward. So, yeah, that could be a permanent, I think. And then good luck to him. It hasn't quite worked out for him. We're talking about pathways with some of these new academy signings they want to bring in. But it can go the other way. If you're not deemed to be quite good enough or quite ready for the first team, then you're better off going out. Because, I mean, what use is him now staying around development level? He's outgrown that. He's, as I say, proved, I thought, at Bradford that he can play certainly lower level Football League. And we've seen it with the Carlton Morrises of this world. Once you get out and you're playing football, who knows where your career can take you. So, yeah, I think all things being equal, I think John Tompkinson goes out between now and the deadline and probably on a permanent. So good luck to him if that happens. Yeah, it
could have been very different for him, couldn't it? After that first senior start at Burnley, didn't quite go the way I think that anyone would have hoped for it to go. But I think you've spoken to him, I've spoken to him. Really, really nice lad, actually. And yeah, it'd be good for him to go out and get some football, I guess, in a more permanent setting that he can go and thrive. I think we can say that if you don't, obviously you can check with other devices or whatnot. Don't leave. Not in the dungeon. But Norwich are teasing a new addition.
I wonder who that could be.
I wonder who it could be.
I've got no idea.
idea. That should happen, we suspect, in the next 5 minutes, and then we can talk about it. But it does look like a deadline date incoming is imminent for Norwich City, and I would suggest that is a certain Sheffield United midfielder. Yeah, that's a good point. There was some quotes from Darren Buchanan, I think, on his podcast about Tompkinson about liking him. So we shall see. Paddy, how many loans out are you expecting? So we've had Barden.
Yeah.
We've got Aboh, we think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tompkinson might be a permanent, but I mean, technically that's an out. Do we talk of a certain left back? Let's mention that. A little bit of an exclusive here that we might. We're hearing a little bit about Waylon Reneki, who's a young. There is a South African link, isn't there? Did he? He's
a South African youth
international. Yeah. And he was out on tour. He played in the Hoffenheim game, I think. But there's a sense that maybe him and his advisors feel his future lies elsewhere, and certainly not one that Norwich want to push out the door. I think they value him, but maybe in terms of his pathway, there's not that alignment. I've heard talk of a very big club in Denmark, so that one might be one to watch over the next few hours. And again, as I say, not one that Norwich really want to lose, but much like the flip side of convincing a Billy G, for example, or a Brandon Forbes to come and play at Norwich. if there's players already here, and we're seeing it with Kamara, we saw it with Adamido, we saw it with John Rowe. If they don't feel Norwich is the environment for them, then it's about getting the best deal possible. So that's one to keep an eye on, I think, over the course of the remaining hours. Other than that, no, I think that'll probably be it. So, I mean, Torup himself said 3 to 5, didn't he? So I think in that spread is probably where we're going to be at.
Yes, indeed. And that is just an absolutely fascinating one, isn't it? Because I don't see a world at this stage of his development where he is going to get probably the amount of championship football that he likes. But as a talent and as a player, we saw him included, I think, in the senior squad towards the back end of last year. I want to say Stoke away, who was in the squad, wasn't he? When Norwich had a little bit of a left back issue, he provided some cover, and again, maybe this partially been the issue about. I
don't think it is.
No, neither Rainier. We'll
Rainier. Let's not go there, Connor.
Yeah, let's not go there. It wasn't ever quite the done deal that I think it's been suggested. Tony Springer, because we've had a question about him from Joachim. I think we've said this a couple of times now, but that's injury related. Why there hasn't been any involvement.
I checked that again today, and that is injury related. Yeah, so that would lend you to bad timing for the lad, isn't it?
It's difficult to get him out, isn't it? Yeah, really difficult to get him out. So that's going to be an interesting one. I think we've got a couple of minutes or so to go until Norwich officially confirm.
It's 11 p.m, isn't it, Connor?
It is. Yeah, I've seen a few comments along the lines. We're not being live until then because we'd be an absolute mess, I would imagine, if we did that.
What would we talk about between now and 11?
And what would,
we're not Sky Sports News. Come on.
We're not exactly. We'll leave you wanting more. That's the way to do it, isn't it? That's what they always say, anyway. In terms of Norwich's window more generally, then, just as we begin to turn to obviously the latest edition in a couple of minutes, how do you say it's gone? Because I remember having conversations with people at the start of May where it felt like they were going to pretty exclusively look at free transfers and loans, and obviously things have changed behind the scenes in terms of ownership and shares and those type of things, as we've discussed on previous shows and podcasts, and Mark Atanasio and all of that kind of thing. Plus, obviously, substantial player sales, adding potentially Aboh Kamara to that. It feels like certainly it's to be in a position where they've spent £8.5 million on any player is pretty remarkable, really.
Absolutely, yeah, and. I mean, I'm trying to think now. It's been such a long time and lots happened. But at the start of the summer, it was very much, they did the Cordoba deal, did that nice and early. That was going to get done irrespective. I know you can draw a simple parallel with Jolis in terms of the values, and they got that for Jolis, and that was pretty much Cordoba. But they were always going to do that because they felt they needed something in that central defensive, left-sided defence area. But thereafter, I think it very much was ins of a substantial nature would have to be dictated by outs, and partly finances, but also in terms of the headcount. But they've still, even now, they've got a very big squad, and that's what we saw. Zara goes and they trigger, and it triggers Forsen, and later Schwartau, you could say as well, in terms of the type of player. Ida goes, it triggers Cernach. So I'm not surprised that the actual volume. I mean, subject to in the next few seconds, a certain individual coming through the door to make number 7. Maybe at the start of summer, if you'd have said they'll bring 7 in, you'd have thought, well, no, that can't happen. But if you look at the outs, I mean, Johannes said it to me yesterday, there are probably more outs than they were banking on or expected to come off. So if that was the case, then you need to replace those players. And as a result, that's why we've ended up with 7 and potentially 8 if they can get a Kamara replacement, which I don't think we certainly wasn't thinking 8 at the start of the summer, was we? So, but yeah, so no, it's not a surprise, I guess, when you start losing the players that they've lost, because you need to replace quality players, and it's been underlined. Atanasio did a bit with the trust, didn't he? That they don't mind putting the expenditure in if it's to deliver. Go on, Connor.
Yeah, a bit of breaking news for you then. Probably the one that you guys were expecting. Norwich City have now confirmed the loan signing of Anis Ben Slimane. We've been told.
Yes, in the first instance.
Anis Ben Slimane. It's already been a long day. Slimane has joined Norwich on a season-long loan with an option to buy. We understand under certain conditions, though, that could become an obligation, and we believe that figure to be around £1.4 million if all goes well. So that is done. Norwich City have their, seventh?
Number 7
for losing count. 7th edition of the summer in the building. Anis Ben Slimane, and this one not a surprise, I think, to anybody. It's obviously been spoken about for a couple of days. We'll have to clarify if he is one that has been registered in time to feature tomorrow. But given, I think, certainly from the media they've put out, it looks like a lot of that was done last night. So you'd hope the registration and whatnot is probably complete on that. So deal done for.
We'll check that
for Ben, for Anis Ben. How you say it?
Anis Ben Slimane.
That's it. That's a mouthful altogether. I don't know why that's so difficult. I think it might just be the stage of the day that we're at. What do you make of this one then, Paddy? It's probably the first time that we've spoken about in a considered setting. Anyway, I say considered, whether this is considered or not. In any setting, really, we've discussed him. What do you make of him as an addition? It's clearly one that Johannes Hoff-Torp and Glenn Riddlesholm will know from their time in Denmark. Really interesting addition because of the type of midfielder that he is.
Yeah, I mean, understandably, Johannes was a little bit reticent to talk about him too much after the Palace game midweek. Given that he'd seen him up close and personal on Saturday at Carrow Road, the plates were definitely shifting already on this deal at that point. But subsequently he talked of him as a sort of a robust type of central midfielder. Can play a little bit further forward. I think he's more of a 6 than an 8 or a 10 in comparison to Schwartau. And we've said it a few times, that these early games, a lot to admire in terms of how Norwich are progressing in all through midfield. But it does feel on occasion in certain parts of these games, they do lack a little bit of bite, a little bit of presence, a bit of combativeness. And by all accounts, this guy will bring that. So maybe the counterpoint to a Schwartau type of midfield profile. Certainly going to keep Kenny McLean on his toes, I would have thought, because I can see him sort of vying with him for a position in that 3. Forsland is a little bit more of a multi-purpose midfielder, I think. But he was good enough for Sheffield United to think, no, he can come and help us in the Premier League last season. 23 is a great age. His best years are clearly ahead of him, and he wanted to come. He wanted to be part of it. He wanted to work with a Danish coach and obviously, Schwartau, they're ex-Bromby teammates. I mean, you saw them on the pitch on Saturday. They embraced like long lost
there was a lot of this going on, when you see players do that. And there was no one in the stadium, so goodness knows what they were talking about. But there was a lot of that going on. Just to bring you some reaction from Slimane. He said, "I'm really excited to get started and finally be here. I can't wait. I know the manager pretty well, and I've been told a lot of good things about the club, fans, training facilities. I'm just really looking forward to getting started and giving something back to the fans." And some words from Norwich City Sporting Director Ben Napper, who said, "We're delighted to welcome Anis to the club. We feel he is another really good addition that will increase the competition within our group and give us more options and flexibility. He has a slightly different profile than what we have already, and we can draw upon experience."
Like I've read those quotes.
It was, yeah. You haven't spoken to him, have you? No. He is a slightly different profile than what we have already, and can draw upon experience of both the Premier League and international football. We feel we can help him improve further too. And I guess this is the point, isn't it, Paddy? Because and you referenced it there. This was a player that was bought for the Premier League by Sheffield United last summer. One that they, I was watching.
Surprised that the report. I mean, obviously it's a loan, and there are certain things that have to happen for it to become a permanent. But that is our understanding. 1.4. That seems cheap to me. Yeah, for a 23-year-old, he played in the Premier League last season.
It does. Yeah, and maybe that's true of a few points. Maybe that is Sheffield United's position financially. I know that there's still obviously plenty of talk around a takeover, and I think, as you can see from his quotes, he was clearly desperate to come. So it does seem a little bit on the cheap side. I guess it depends what the conditions are and how achievable they are, and we're not obviously privy to how achievable they are in terms of that. And could sometimes these depend on appearances, league position. It can be a host of things. As someone pointed out, it could be a PSR situation for them. It could be a host of things. But I think there probably is a little bit of surprise at that, because a player of his ability, I think they reportedly signed him for about 2 million. Whether or not that's actually how much they pay for him, I think those quotes encapsulate it quite well. Someone who adds competition. I think we've all felt and seen in that midfield position, particularly with obviously the fear that Forsland was going to be out for a prolonged period, that they probably did lack a slightly different option. There feels like a real versatility to his game. There's when he signed for Sheffield United, there's a good interview actually with Paul Heckingbottom, who was their manager at the time, and he spoke about Slimane and how they've been monitoring for a period of time. But actually, the thing he says pretty consistently is that he can play multiple positions in midfield, and about how technically proficient he is. And you think about Johannes Hoff-Torp and his system. That's what he wants. And I know people will look at the reports from Sheffield United fans and maybe he hasn't had glowing reports. I think that's probably fair, and I'm probably being kind in terms of the summation of that.
It's tough. I mean, anybody who's seen Norwich the last 2 times in the Premier League, that is a very if you're not configured. I mean, even Luton, who are much more cohesive, I felt, as a club and the playing style and what they were trying to do. Correct. I mean, they couldn't still keep their head above the water. And we know last 2 times Norwich have been up there, it's a brutal, unforgiving place. So coming in as well from a different country, it's not surprising, I think, that maybe he didn't have the impact that maybe a lot of them Sheffield United fans were expecting.
Agreed. And the other point I was going to make is you look at the levels that he did achieve in Denmark, which is what Torup, I'm sure, will be using much more as his reference, and Napa will be using much more as their reference point. He was far too good for the Danish league by the end of it, hence a move to the Premier League, which is you don't make a move to the Premier League if you're certainly not good enough. And he's got World Cup experience, international experience, Premier League experience. At 23, that feels like quite a good profile to be bringing in, particularly under a head coach who has identified him as fitting his system. And that sort of fits to the point that you were saying, Paddy, because it's all very well and good bringing in defensive midfielders, number 6s, and I know people have spoken about that all summer. But actually what Torup feels he needs is players who can fit into his system and who can perform in his system. And that is much more important about number 6s or pigeonholing players in that regard.
Well, what did we have, Connor? I mean, the amount of Q&As we did this summer, we need a DM, we need an Ollie Skip, we as in Norwich, but that's not a Torup midfielder, is it? He doesn't want somebody effectively just parked in front of the back 4, doesn't go beyond the halfway line. He wants more mobility, more dynamism. Yes, of course, they have to have that defensive structure out of possession, and you could argue that they need to work on that. So far, some of the goals have conceded in general play, the mindset set play, but they would never will you see, I don't think, an Ollie Skip, if you want to put a label on it, type of CDM coming in under Torup, because that's not how he operates. He wants a little bit more nuance, I guess, to his midfield players in that area of the pitch, because they have to be very, whatever your role is, the common thread is they have to be very good at progressing the ball from centre backs through the pitch.
Yes, indeed. I'm just trying to load the Sheffield United end of things to see if there's any words from Chris Wilder. But given his reaction, good riddance. Yeah, I was going to say, given his reaction the other night, I suspect there will not be. But that's signing number 7 in the building for Norwich. We'll try and get clarification. You might be able to do that now, Pat. Actually, in terms of whether he's registered or not for tomorrow, that would be. I'll check that. That'd be good to know and be able to bring you. But my feeling would be if he's been announced at 1:30. I think the cutoff is 12. I don't know if it's slightly different for lunchtime kickoff. Sorry, but I think it tended to be you had to get them registered with the EFL by midday for them to play. So if that is the case, you would feel like he probably should be available. But again, we shall see. And there was that. I don't know if you saw that, Paddy. That which is the reference that Finley's just referenced. That video of him in the dressing room at Bromley, where he's basically giving a team talk, and you can see probably the sort of character he is. But going to be really interesting to see where he slots in, and I guess where Torup envisages him slotting in as well.
We can probably put that one to bed, Connor. Not that he was ever out of bed.
Yes, indeed. I think that
we got told off the other day for putting these up and not letting people read them. So sorry.
Well, I got told off. It's not even me. My hands are here.
I think your machine. We're doing this on your machine. I think there's a problem here. Your machine. It's not me. It's there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Apologies if we don't give enough time for people to read the comments.
Yeah, indeed. We'll get back on that. Let's speak Josh Sargent, shall we then, Paddy? Because there's been, I think, lots of concern given that Ivan Toney, which is a deal that looks to be getting done elsewhere, looks set to be moved to Saudi Arabia for, I think, 40 million is the figure that I've seen, which for a player in the last year of his contract is phenomenal. Lots of people, Norwich fans, getting concerned about Josh Sargent because he's someone that Brentford have been linked with, I think, throughout the summer. And is one that I think we definitely know they like and have watched, as have other Premier League clubs. There's been interest from the MLS. There was a bid from the MLS, which I think we reported as well. You spoke to Torup yesterday. Beyond the joke about having him locked in his I don't know, maybe it wasn't a joke. I don't know, beyond having him locked in his basement,
lock him in here, get him in here. They never find him here.
Exactly, no, they wouldn't. Where are you at with Josh Sargent at the moment? Are you concerned? Is there cause for concern? How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, of course we're concerned because the window is still open we're just approaching sort of 1:45 now. So what's that? Another 9 hours. When you referenced this time last year where all hell broke loose, and I know it's at a lower level in terms of the player ins, but We've seen it. How often is there a lull, and then it just explodes, and it's like the domino effect, and that is the concern. Brentford, Fulham's another club looking for a striker. Chelsea, striker. I'm not trying to put Chelsea and Josh Sargent together, but there are Premier League clubs.
Fulham, I think, are looking.
Fulham, yeah, just said, yeah, in the intervening hours that will be looking for centre forwards. Now, if you're looking for centre forwards, you're not doing your recruitment team aren't doing their job if you're not looking a step below the Premier League, because the reality is Premier League clubs selling strikers to other Premier League clubs doesn't happen too often. It's certainly not ones who can come in and affect it. So you're clearly going to be looking at the Championship. I don't think there's a better over the last season or half. Well, season and the start of this season, is there a better striker in the Championship? I mean, you had the piece. Kenny McLean said he is the best.
So he's the best.
I'd be inclined. Obviously, it comes down to game model and the type of striker. But if Josh Sargent is the type of player that fits a game model in the Premier League, then you're not looking beyond. If you're looking in England, of course, you'd be casting your net further afield. But so, yeah, my fear is that he is probably going to be on these clubs' radar. And
I tell you what, if they sell Josh Sargent, they're going to want to come and join us in here, I think, is what I would suggest, particularly at this late stage.
Desperation causes desperate. I'm talking from a Fulham, a Brentford.
Yeah.
If they're
it's going to take big money, though, isn't it?
But from the Norwich point of view, and we've seen it again with Kamara, as we've seen it with Ida, Rowe, Sarah to a lesser extent. There will be no give on the Norwich side. They won't fold over and just allow Josh Sargent to go off to a Premier League club. It would have to be the most persuasive of bids, and it would have to be
30
mega money, 30 plus. Yeah, I mean, Charlie in the Sun had the piece this morning that is the valuation, 30 plus. And then you get into a nightmare scenario where can Norwich hypothetically lose Josh Sargent and bring in somebody? Because at the moment, who else is scoring goals in this Norwich collective? Cernach, don't see it too early. Give him time to bed in. Science, no. Well, again, Aboh's going out potentially. So
Ashley Barnes injured,
but not prolific. There really is, and they're already at the moment, even with Sargent in the side, you'd feel clinically they're not there in terms of chance conversion.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to put in what Finley's. I thought he was linking them with it. I thought he was linking Ipswich. No.
Let's not go there.
In fact, we'll put that in then. Yeah, no. Thankfully, that would be.
He's another very good striker.
If it was Ipswich coming, he is. If it was Ipswich coming, it'd have to be a 1. It'd have to be a 1-0. 1-1.
You don't pick up that.
But anyway, we don't need to worry about that. I am now beginning to get a little bit concerned, and not through anything we've heard from the Norwich end, but just that.
There's enough Premier League teams looking, isn't
every passing hour causes you to fear that he will be getting bumped up a watch list on these clubs' potential targets. So
I like this from Jason actually, and I'd be inclined to agree with him if I can get it up. There we go. Sargent, absolutely, definitely, categorically not good enough for the Premier League at the moment. Tomorrow morning's a different story. I would agree. 1 minute past 11 would be a different story, providing there's no sort of deal sheet in or anything like that, any of that going on. But yeah, as we say, I think it's just it's not any. That's not come from a place of knowledge. So let's stress that.
It's hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's like a Sky Sports thing. That's all I ever see when I watch that Sky Sports News now.
Yeah. Need a couple of YouTubers and we'll be.
Yeah. Just sort of. Basically talking about nothing really, which is what we're very good at that. So but that's just the hypothetical part of this debate. We're not at any moment putting Josh Sargent in firmly in the sights of Premier League clubs.
No, in fact, quite the opposite. In fact, as I look ahead of me, we've got a lovely red chair, which is sat all on its own. If Norwich City would like to bring Josh Sargent here and lock him up, then they're more than we're more than happy to provide that. So there you go. But we'll see how it goes. As you said, we've got plenty of time yet. I just honestly cannot foresee a situation where Josh Sargent goes. I think it would be Armageddon for Norwich. I really do. I just
35 million.
No, I don't think you can now. I just to get who in. I just don't know.
Well, you'd have to take the hit, wouldn't you, in terms of the impacts in the short term? But
you can't. I just think the footballing repercussions of that would be absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would also argue, and again, we're ignoring the fact of player power. We've seen it plenty of times this summer. If that situation did arise, but if he is happy to remain, then I think another 20 goals in the Championship, as Chris Sutton put in his column, actually, you're looking at a record fee for him, I think, from a Norwich City perspective. So I think
north of Buendia, isn't it?
Yeah. I think happy or unhappy, you have to say to him, look, no, we can't do it, because I think that would not to be over dramatic, but I think Norwich would be looking over their shoulder if they sold Sargent at this stage with the way everything is at the moment.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, just to go off on a tangent, but on that point, with Hull and Kamara, I mean, a good mate of mine, he won't mind me saying that he lives up in York now, but from Coventry, he's got a lad who's playing with Hull. He's in their under-18s team, and his dad is of the opinion that if Hull don't get this window right, they are in banging trouble. Which, given they were under Rossini last season, so good on the eye, and really in that fight with Norwich getting the top 6, it just shows you how quickly it can turn in a matter of a season and 1 or 2 windows. But that would be a big call, Connor, if you think a post Sargent world would. But the reality is, who's going to score the goal?
Yeah, we've just mapped out. And again, if you're talking about selling him at this stage, you're not signing someone, in my view, who would be anywhere near Sargent's current level. So I think I think it would be very, very hairy if they were to do that.
We can put a line through this man, though, can't we? In the hypothetical, Sargent goes, who do they possibly bring?
Well, they like him. Yeah, they've liked him for a long time, but I think I've read Stoke actually in the last hour or so. So there's plenty of Championship clubs that do like him. I've got to be honest, I don't think he is. Certainly, if we're talking Sargent replacements, I don't think he's anywhere near the level. No. Again, I personally think Sargent stays now. I think if that was going to happen, from a Norwich perspective, I just don't think you can entertain that.
Well, I mean, just on that front, I mean, as I say, we're going back rather than what could happen in the next 9 hours. But this time yesterday, sat there with Torop at Colney, and once he got past the jokey basement line, he basically said, "Look, yeah, there was that MLS interest earlier in the summer. That window's now closed. That might have given him a bit of a sense of, well, maybe my future lies elsewhere. But once they got past that, there hasn't been anything in terms of firm offers." And he was, again, reiterated of the opinion that Sargent's focus, as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 others in that group, no longer here, and then one who is still here and might only be here for the next few hours, that there was no sense that they would actively be agitating for a move, and that he's certainly for the next 6 months or so very happy to be here, to be scoring goals, to be playing, to be loved by the fans, to be a key player in the Championship. And so that, I guess, does flow into, what would it take? What would it take? It's not just putting money on the table. Is an opportunity that Josh Sargent feels is a career step up. And, maybe not if it's clubs who are at the wrong end of the Premier League. You could be back in the Championship again. So he's also got to look at that. But, he is slightly older than some of these other players this summer at Norwich. And I think he would have a more rounded. He's a father of 2 now, isn't he, as well? Yeah. So that all factored into it. He's not one who's looking to make a quick move and maybe act rashly and regret it later. So hopefully all those elements pulled together will ensure that come 11 o'clock he's still a Norwich player. Yeah,
so still many hours to go yet though. So everything that we've said here could look absolutely ridiculous in the space of half an hour, which is the way this operates. Can I say something on this, which is the flights? Norwich aren't in a world where they're able to get flights in for people, I'm afraid. And how far away is Farnborough?
Farnborough, Hampshire. Is it Hampshire?
You tried that, wouldn't you? I don't think you get a flight. Hampshire. But just as a general point, I don't think it's worth staying up and watching Flight Radar. Unless you're a plane enthusiast anyway, because from a Norwich City perspective, I don't see a whole lot of activity coming that way. Particularly given, as we've mapped out, if this does go late and they do go and get a player from abroad, then there is a world where then you have to get other clubs to do medicals and send stuff through. So the actual possibility of getting a player over here to do all of that stuff is going to be quite tough. Yeah. Anyway, let's answer this one. We'll be live for about 5 more minutes or so if you want to join us, because I'm quite hungry. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not sure what stages of the day we're going to get opportunities to eat food at. This question though, Paddy, I will read from NCFC 1902. Probably already answered, but what type of midfielder is Slimane, holding or box to box? Cheers, boys. I mean, you did kind of map it out, but we think he's more in the 8 to 6 role rather than the 8 to 10 role that perhaps Schwartau and Renier would have been if Norwich would have got that.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say. And you look at him physically, he's a very robust. Well, to be fair, Schwartau is a big unit as well, isn't he? But no, more the counterpoint to Schwartau is how I look at it. Good, Paul. Who is on? What's Joe's point there?
What
Joe, this one here.
I feel like there's some history about flight. Not majorly. Norwich have used them, but I just think in a post parachute payment world, Absolutely not. And I think there was one about John Rowe, wasn't there, on a plane to Marseille, which was a medical plane. So there's different reasons for private flights. They're not all football related all of the time. In fact, very rarely they are. Lots of comments about lunch. Don't know yet. Depends if the canteen's still open by the time we exit here, which I think is going to be tough if I'm being honest. Just someone did ask up here. Richard asked about Finley Welsh. He's a really interesting one, Paddy, because he was obviously in a lot of matchday squads towards the end of last. It made his senior debut for Norwich. And was it away at Middlesbrough, I think, for 5 minutes or so. Where do you think he's at? Because we've not seen a lot of him, particularly in the latter stages of pre-season. Do you feel he is one they would let out if the stars aligned?
Well, again, I mean, for me, it's very, very Tompkinson-esque that, new head coach has come in, new style of play. You compare him with Gabe Forsyth, how he's completely accelerated past and is very much seen as a Torop style midfielder. The fact that he's been nowhere near it, you would have to lead you to believe that maybe he's one that his future lies elsewhere, which is a shame because I think he's from a Norwich supporting family, isn't he, as well, if I'm not mistaken, and he is one who has come right through the academy. But like with Tompkinson, what is his age now? 20, 21?
23, I believe.
Oh, he's as old as 23?
I think so. Let me Google.
No, Finley Welsh.
Oh, Finley Welsh. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were speaking.
But
that's multitasking for you.
Yeah. But he's I've got a sense he's probably if not 20, very close to
19. 20 in October.
Yeah, there you go. So you're really tipping to the point where you need to be playing games, don't you? So yeah, I've not heard anything around him and between now and deadline, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was another one in that academy development cycle that they allowed to go out, because realistically, he's nowhere near it at the minute. He's not going to be anywhere near it moving forward, is he? So, why would he want to sit here and play development football? So be a shame, but that's as I say, that's the kind of sifting process that goes on. Especially when a new head coach comes in with a very different style of play to the predecessor. That game you talked about was a David Wagner, obviously opportunity for him, but if Torop and Glenn and the coaches around them have made some decisions on these younger players, and you sort of have to back their judgment, don't you? Because as I say, the converse of that, or the reverse of that is Gabe Forsyth's acceleration into a genuine first team option.
Excellent. Right. I think that rounds us off nicely. We will, of course, be on the live blog. There's a live blog on our website at the moment and on the app and all of that sort of thing that we're updating pretty regularly. Every time we get an update or there's something new, we're putting stuff in there. So that is the best place to go. We've got a deal at the moment, Paddy, in terms of...
Don't put me on the spot.
I have put you on the spot. Sorry. We did tweet about it, but there is a very good offer.
I'll find it.
I think it's 18 for the year I've got in my head, and £4 for 4 months. We're on the same page, so there must be some truth in that.
Yeah, I think if you go on the socials, it's there pinned on the top of the Pink and X account. You're right, £4 for 4 months, £18 for a year. Some nice comments today. We didn't put them up to it. That's completely unprompted. Yeah. It's a counterpoint to the clown who came on, I saw, and said, because our blog is like free to air today, that the 6 subscribers would be disappointed. Let me assure you, my friend, there's considerably more than 6, and we love every single one of you. So, but there is a deal on. If you haven't took the plunge, £4. What Jeff Mann, the top man that is Jeff Mann, said, what can you get? You can't even get a cup of coffee for £4 these days.
You'd be struggling. So we're not going to get lunch for £4. I wouldn't have thought.
No. Come and watch us more in the dungeon for the next 4 months.
Absolutely.
It's well worth £4. That.
Absolutely. So check out all the details are there. Yeah. All the details are there on the offer to come and join us. If you like what we've done over the summer, we've tried our very best to keep you up to date on all things, as we will do heading into the season as well, when there's not transfers to talk about, which I think we're both quite relieved about.
I'll be delighted.
And we'll see. And we'll end actually with CGA. Sorry, go on. You answer, Joe.
No, we've not had any time scale other than to say both of them. It feels like they're a long way down the road. So. Let's go and have lunch first.
Yeah, let's have lunch first. Yeah, and we'll end on this one from CGA. Nice trip to your home.
Yeah,
your home tomorrow. First and foremost, excited, and you're going to go for a draw, aren't you, in terms of score prediction? Because you always do. Norwich Cov.
Okay. Yeah. No. I think Cov might win actually.
Do you?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah.
Is that because you're in Sky Blue?
No, because I won't be allowed to go home if I don't say Cov win, because I'll be all watching. But no, I just think. They look a bit further along the path. Thank you, my man. But I think it'll be a good game. I think there'll be goals. I think it's 2 good sides. So, but Josh Sargent hat-trick. There we go.
Yeah, that would be nice.
What about you, Connor? What's your prediction?
I'm going to go 2-2. Nice, nice draw to take us into the international break. So there we go. Right, we're off to get some lunch. As I said, well, that's the current plan, unless things change drastically in the next 5 minutes, which you can never write off on a deadline day. But as I said, we'll be across it until it ends tonight. So come and join us in the candlelit wherever we are in our house at the stages that everything gets done and dusted. But we'll bring you updates as and when we have them. Thank you very much for joining us. Drink water, stay hydrated, try and keep awake. Long day ahead. See you soon.